last segment, we talked about the drift and how complacency sneaks in when we stop paying attention, and how awareness is the first step to change. We challenge you to do your life dashboard to see where you've really been coasting and where the gaps were showing up. And today, we're going to take that one step further, because awareness without ownership doesn't move the needle. This segment is about accountability, what we call owning your AO, your area of operations. When we were deployed, every man had an area of operations in a sector of fire. If you only covered yours halfway, if you left a sector unmanned, someone else could pay the price for it, and complacency would cost lives. Now that we're back home, and while the battlefield looks different, the principle hasn't changed at all. The AO you own is your life, your body, your mind, your relationships, your purpose. Leave it uncovered and it will cost you. And accountability isn't blame, it's ownership. In combat, if a mission failed, leaders didn't point fingers, they took responsibility and figured out how to fix it. And that's the mindset we're after here. Not shame, not guilt, but a warrior standard of ownership. So today, we're going to challenge you to identify your AO, where you're slipping and where you're compromising. Because once you name it, you can reclaim it. So strap in and let's dive in.
All right, so exactly, excuses. Matt has something here that reads off to me just to help us get along about excuses, but, Matt should know me well, and everybody else who does know me knows me well. You can give me a block, and just 1 micron level outside of that block is, like, where I like to do things. Excuses are huge. Excuses are lies. We talked about it last time when we were on here. It is an absolute lie because every excuse is you just not taking accountability. Well, that goes into everything. When we spent time in the military, and I can only point in this direction for the most because I've heard some of the craziest excuses of my life in the military. But every time I hear an excuse, it is you just not taking accountability. Well, I'm late because my clock did this or whatever the case is. And as a staff sergeant or whatever the case you may be, you can always look at someone and be like, "Well, wake up earlier." And I know a lot of people have had jobs or whatever the case is when you've been out and about, where the job has come to you and said, "Hey, if you're late again, this and this is gonna happen." And you say, "Well, it's not my fault," or whatever the case is, "Traffic's this, this happened, then this happened." And we all know that life happens. So, we tend to always be okay with excuses because it gives us that particular out. And I'm not saying the excuses aren't valid for some things. Traffic does get bad. Um, one of the things that I had to learn from myself was even in the smallest excuses, just like the smallest of everything, if I can't trust you to do tiny, tiny little things, then I can't trust you to do giant things. And you should be able to put that into the same perspective with yourself too. Because if you can't trust yourself to do tiny things, then how in the world are you ever going to get further and farther than you've ever gone before? So that
True.
goes directly into just something small like, well, traffic's always, well, traffic's always bad. Why is it that we can't get to work 45 minutes early? Like, why can't we? When I was in the Army, I used to love getting to work early. One, because the stress was a lot less. But then I got to be able to do something that I can't do when I first wake up in the morning because I got all my kids and stuff, right? So,
Mhm.
as a lot of people wake up and they would love to pick up their Bible, they'd love to do this research, or they'd love to whatever, place into X. But if I get to work an hour early and I have to sit inside my car for an hour before I gotta walk into work, that gives me all the time in the world to do the things that are necessary, listen to the music to get myself amped up. And you might go into a job that you hate, and that's your fault. But no matter what we're doing, that is what discipline is, right? So, it doesn't matter what your excuse is, everything has to keep going. You have to keep going. It doesn't matter, you have bills, you have health issues, you have, other things that go on in your family that you gotta deal with, and it just doesn't stop just because you want it to. And people do decide to, I guess, relish in the idea that their excuses are getting them somewhere. It's that fake it till you make it priority, but the problem is when you fake it till you make it, like we've talked about before, you end up just making it to a certain point, and it's usually not fun. That point's not fun. It really isn't. And then you get
Yeah.
stuck in that way of giving yourself an excuse every single day. So, life does grade your intent, it only grades your outcome. That's Matt's words, and I like those words, but it's absolutely true. Like, at the end of the day, when the chapter closes, uh, what you were able to accomplish is what is seen, not what you thought about accomplishing. I've spent years thinking about accomplishing being a bodybuilder, and then I got to a certain point where I just got lazy in my way and just let it go. It wasn't like something I really, really wanted to do, but I had the intentions, right? Oh, that's great. In my first marriage, I had intentions to be the best man I could possibly be, but I never, that outcome didn't display itself because I didn't push forward for it. I didn't look at the things I needed to do. And I made a lot of excuses in that relationship.
Yeah, I've done the same thing. It's, and you start stacking them all up, and pretty soon everybody's just like, this guy's only going to come to me with excuses.
Sure.
Everything's just an excuse. And it's like, what good are you then? You know?
Yeah. So when your kid comes in, mom, dad, and you're like, oh my God, it's just going to be some BS. It's the same thing with your employees, or the same thing with your friends, or the same thing with your wife, or the same thing with yourself. You tend to, people tend to like, what is that, brush you off because they know that's
Mhm.
who you are.
Yeah, you're not somebody that can be relied upon. You have no accountability at all.
Absolutely. And is that the person you want to be? Even for a microscopic level, like we all have it. We do it. I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it. Everybody's guilty of it. It's just, you know, is that excuse, is it killing you? Are those excuses killing you?
Yeah, I think a lot of it too. I mean, it drags people down. I mean, they don't realize how far down in a hole they're going every time they do that. I mean, I watched this happen countless times um, in my first deployment over in Iraq, and we had some very weak squad leaders. And when like our platoon sergeant, we had an amazing platoon sergeant. His name was Sergeant Salinas, and that dude would not allow squad leaders to blame his soldiers at all. He'd be like, "No, no, this is on you. You're supposed to lead them. So where did you fall short?
Yeah, I love
You
that.
know, where did you fall short? You know?" And
I think
yeah,
that, yeah, that's awesome. I mean, when I first got to Hawaii back in 2000 and I don't know, 15-ish, I remember being on a Marine Corps uh, training section where they did some of their live fires with like AT4s and stuff. And we used some of their training places in Hawaii. There's not a lot of training locations, so you kind of have to borrow and kind of kiss some butt to get in certain locations. But with that, I remember being out there one time, and I'm not a brand new squad leader. I mean, you know me, I've been doing this for a long time, but me showing up out there from recruiting school, going back onto the line, I had we went to this training event, and there was like bleachers out there and stuff, and I'm walking around, and as I'm walking around, you know how like you don't have trash cans in any of the training events, you just kind of like tie trash bags to like a handle or something, and like, hey guys, this is where your trash goes.
yeah.
So like, imagine this: you walk around the corner, and there's 132 Joes plus all the leadership, right? And I would say when I say leadership, Joes are always surrounded by E5s, right? The sergeants, right?
Mhm.
Staff sergeants, platoon sergeants, PLs, and all that stuff are kind of like hanging out, deliberating, figuring out what training is going to be. But anyways, so I remember walking out one time and I see about 8 team leaders just standing around joking with each other. I got the Joes, they're all looking around, they're eating snacks and stuff. They're about to end their lunch break, whatever. And I look at every single hut that we're staying in, and the trash bags are all tied there, but trash is pouring out of the trash bags, like pouring out of the trash bags. So I'm talking to a couple of other guys. I'm like, this is crazy. And so I'm getting angry, right? So I'm getting angry. And I'm getting angry because how dare there be a ton of team leaders standing around? They all are looking at me, looking at these trash bags, and nobody does a darn thing about it, right? None of these team leaders could take accountability for their area of operation. They couldn't take any accountability. So when I yelled for all the team leaders, every team leader come to me. Everybody came to me. And that's what I started chewing their asses about. I was like, how can you say that you're in charge? How can you say that you're doing your job? How can you say that you are accountable? How can you say that you're a good leader? And as I'm standing here as a staff sergeant, I'm looking around and I see Joe doing nothing and I see sergeants doing nothing. And here is, 9 trash bags filled and overflowing. So I made every team leader grab all these trash bags, get as much trash, and there was an open field to our right about 10, 15 meters. And I just said, "Lay all these trash bags down," and I told them to go back over there and keep on talking to your buddies. So they went back over there and started talking to the buddies, and I probably for 20 minutes, I called one other staff sergeant, and we just opened up all those trash bags and littered this 60-meter by 60-meter long, 20-meter wide field of trash. And I made all the Joes stand in a giant circle around that trash, and I made every single E5 pick up that garbage one by one. And man, those E5s were so pissed off at me. And then when they were done, I pulled them all together and I said, "Let me tell you something. I want you to look at all these Joes." And they all looked over and I said, "Each one of them are laughing at you. They're laughing at you." I said, "I want you to take a moment and remind yourself that they deserve to laugh at you because you failed to do your damn job." I was like, and just this small thing, like, I have a break. So in my break of time, in my relaxation, what I should do, in your head, you thought I should relax. I was like, and that's not what we're here for. We're not here to take a break. We're not here to take and put a knee down and drink our water and have a Josh and moment. I said, we are here to work. We should be doing this every single day. And if there's something small that needs to be done and you aren't doing it, you've already failed. And that's the same thing with everything that we do in life. If there's small things that you need to take control of, and I'm not preaching to anybody saying, I'm not a failure at this. I fail at these things too, but we should be reevaluating our life every single day because, like you said, these things just in deployment they are going to cost you your life immediately, but at home they could cost your life in the future. So why are we making these excuses? Why are we looking at small things that need to be taken care of and dealt with, and we're just deciding, you know what? I'm not going to do that today. I'll do that tomorrow. And then how many times does that tomorrow become the same tomorrow as the last day?
Yeah. I mean, people love to procrastinate. "Ah, I got time. I got time." Or I always like the one, "It'll work out,"
Yeah, no.
you know?
It never
And then when it
does.
doesn't work out, they're like, "Oh, man." Or they'll blame,
There you go. Yeah.
when you're talking faith-based, right? It's, I've seen people be like, they'll blame God for the mistakes in their lives, and it's like, well, how much accountability do you really have for yourself? You say you're faith-based and you're a believer. Well, are you really? Are you really? I mean, I make up excuses. I'm a believer, but I
Yep.
know that if I don't, toe the line and try to follow that path to God, then my life's gonna get a whole lot worse. I've seen it happen. I've watched it happen to me. I've experienced it. It sucks.
Yeah.
And I had nobody to blame but myself because I'm the one that deviated from the path. I started making those small little compromises in my life, and I was just like, things will get better, you know. But just like lies, you know,
Yeah.
their excuses are they correlate right there, and they're just like lies. And most excuses are lies. You had to like come up with an excuse and tell some elaborate story as to why you couldn't execute X, Y, or Z, and that's why I'm so thankful for the military because they wouldn't let you do that. They're like, no, no, like you did it, own it, you know. That, that's why I was, we worked with team leaders and soldiers that would come up with excuses as to why they couldn't execute their tasks or whatever, or oh, you didn't give me enough time, and it's like, yeah, well, how much effort did you really put into this? You know,
Yeah. Like we talk about taking ownership, and I think ownership looks different in a lot of ways. But my ownership for me personally comes back even one of the hardest things I've ever had to take ownership with was my time as a kid in church, the time that I was molested and raped by a man. And then, everybody around me, pushed me away and said I was lying. Right. A- And for me, that piece of people not believing me, I held on to that more than just what had happened. But I think when you're talking about failing in those things, or when we're talking about not taking control or ownership of those things, it's hard to understand what ownership looks like at times. And if we even go into faith based, I can point out to a point where I lost faith in my faith or I lost the guidance of it, or whatever the case is. And that's because I built excuses, because the world around me, society allowed me to create this. They're like, "Oh, you poor victim, you poor victim." I mean, yes, I'm a victim, right?
Mhm.
But whether or not I'm a victim doesn't matter to me. What ended up happening was I had forgiven the man who did that, and not only forgiven him, but I took accountability and owned what had happened, not because I made a mistake or because, you know, God hates me, so he allowed this thing to happen to me. I understand that there's free will that exists in the world. And so since this man did this to me, what did I do with that traumatic response? And I could have taken that traumatic response and just, dyed my hair pink, throw in a septum piercing, and became, a crazy person, I guess you could say, or someone that just loves excuses because it makes my life easier. But
Ooh.
what ended up actually making my life easier was going, that wasn't my fault. And it wasn't the fault of everybody else, and I don't care if it was their fault. What I now I'm taking accountability for is, okay, so if God gives me that free will, and I have the ability to choose whether this affects me or not, and it does affect me, how am I gonna allow this to affect me? Because it used to affect me in a negative way, but now it's like, "Oh, okay. Well, God turned me into a sword, a very sharp
Um,
sword." So that actually pushed me into the position I'm in today. Is when I left the army, I didn't know what to do with myself. I had no more had was there a purpose that sat in front of me. I had to go and find my purpose, and I can only imagine that God didn't want these things to happen to me, but though they did, it made me, a huge proponent for children. It allowed me to seek, the ability to protect other people. It allowed me the opportunity to understand that God created me as a weapon for good, and that I have the ability to fight evil because my whole life I've been sat in front of these types of evils, and now I have a better understanding of what my enemy looks like. But that was me taking all the ownership of what I could do in myself because it just didn't do me any good to be like, "Oh, yeah, that hurt me, and that's the why and way I am." Okay, maybe it is, but now I'm gonna turn it into a weapon. I'm gonna make it bigger and stronger. I'm gonna, I'm no longer gonna be complacent when it comes to these thought process. I'm gonna become stronger and better mentally, physically, all those things.
Yeah, not getting stuck in that woe is me,
Yeah,
like self-loathing, oh, this happened to me, so my trauma can control my life. Or, you know, you're expecting your spouse to read your mind.
right.
Who's like that one? Like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
you should know better, right? You should know. Like, what? How the hell am I gonna know something if you don't tell me?
right. I think
You know?
everybody's judging me everywhere I go and thinks I'm skinny and retarded. You know what I'm saying? Like, it might not it's probably not true, but that's the way I'm viewing it, so no one should know what another person's thinking, right?
Mhm. The only people that you should care what they're thinking is, your closest of friends, the people, your confidants.
Right.
For me, that's a big one. Of my kids, how they view me. And if my kids view me as one of those people that likes to make excuses and not take accountability, then they're like, "Oh, that's perfectly fine. I can do the same thing."
Well, that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're
Right.
supposed to just follow mom and dad,
Yeah.
no reflection.
Yeah.
And that's not to like, I mean, if you're one of those people, just understand that you're one of those people and you have the ability to change this thing. I have family members, super close family members, that seem to think that everybody else is stupider than they are. And they won't take one ounce of advice because the second that they have to take advice is the second they have to come to terms with the fact that they're wrong about a lot of things. And so, like, you'll find a lot of people in life who are shielding themselves, using their victimhood or whatever they perceive as victimhood, right? They're being a victim of something because a lot of people make victims out of themselves for things that don't actually translate to victimhood.
Yeah. I mean, I used to blame a lot of things on my PTSD,
Yeah.
and, and I'd be like, "Ah," and I have complex PTSD.
Yeah.
And, you know, but I can either stay and be like, "Okay, yeah, I have this," or like you said, I can weaponize it and use it for good and be able to help others, you know, be able to have tough conversations with other veterans that have the same issues that I do and be like, hey, you know, like don't use that as an excuse. Like you still got it in you. Yeah, you're going to have your bad days. I have my bad days. I have like paralyzing days where I can't do anything. Right. But I also know now that if I have that, then there is people that I can go to and be like, "Hey, this is what I'm feeling like. Just can I just dump for a second?" And Lauren's excellent for this because she will just stay completely quiet and then be like, "Well, do you want to stay in that mindset?" And I'm like, "No, of course not. Like, why would I want to?
Right.
It doesn't do any good for me. I can't get on here with you. We wouldn't be out here trying to help people." Or for example, the other morning, that was 2 mornings ago, I had my recording with Gigi, and that whole morning just started off complete garbage. I mean, complete garbage. I went, I was like, I got my nice shirt on, I got got everything. I look good. And I'm like, all right, good to go. And then spill my coffee down my shirt, burn the hell out of myself. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll just call her and just be like, hey, let's reschedule this thing because this day is just not going right. And I don't think I'm going to show up 100%. And then I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You're gonna go home, you're gonna go change your shirt, you're gonna get your shit together, and you're gonna go back out there. And you're gonna go and you're gonna show up for her and do this for her so that way she can grow, she can get her word out and build some confidence. And I even told her, I was like, I almost called it off this morning because, my morning was just sucked. And she's like, "Oh, I felt the same way." And I was just like, "Nope, I'm gonna do it. I'm going to sit down with Matt. We're going to have this conversation." And we both were able to show up 100% for each other. And it was awesome. So,
Yeah.
but just making those small little like, yeah, I'm not going to do it because, this happened to me or it's a bad morning. So I'm going to let it control my entire day and I'm going to show up and just be a total, ass to everybody else. And, you know, you know, it I just don't get it. I don't get it, and I mean, I do get it actually because that's how I used to be. I would carry my marriage problems into my recruiting station as a station commander, and I would not be the most pleasant guy in the world, and I'd be like, "No, we're not playing this." And I would take out every ounce of aggression on them, and then I had to start realizing, "Whoa, whoa, whoa," and it was another leader that called me out. It was my assistant. He's like, "Bro, I know you got stuff going on at home, but we got a mission to do, and we can't do that mission if you're going to keep coming at us with negativity." So, and these were top recruiting stations.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I think the mission
which,
matters though too, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like if you're stuck inside of a job you hate, that mission's not a mission you care about,
yeah.
right?
And
But
if you're
then
stuck in a job that you hate, what are you doing to advance so you can get out of that job?
right, like what kind of investment are you putting in yourself to either move out of that job or find the next position inside that career field?
Hmm.
And most people are like, "Yeah, but for me to find this much money and blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Yeah, but I also know it's the same thing as anybody who tells me about, you know, the Bible or whatever the case is." I'm like, "But how many times have you read it? How many times have you actually looked? Like really actually intentfully looked, like spent 2 hours every day for the next 7 days, like really looking into it and trying to figure out." And most people say no, none, 0. So I'm like, "Well, how can you ever walk a different path if you just if you don't ever Google Earth the damn path? It doesn't make any damn sense."
Yeah.
That's complacency. I watched my father do it before he died. That was one of my biggest gripes to him all the time was, "It makes no damn sense that you have all this experience, all this time under your belt, and then you're choosing these terrible positions, and then when you get into them, you make excuses." Well, especially for my father, and but he'll say, "Well, it doesn't matter. My life sucks." That's the Sanders way. That's what I heard my whole life. Us Sanders, we just got bad luck. We got bad luck. We got bad luck. And I would just watch him create this excuse of it's just Sanders, we have bad luck. And that caused him to just fade away until in 57 he passed away because he just didn't give a hoot anymore. He just didn't care. And then and let me tell you all something right now. He did not care. My father did not care, but the day he died, my sister called me at 7 in the morning, maybe like 6:45, and the night prior, my sister was telling me that they kept having a strange man when my father would leave. He would come up and to, like, look in the windows and leave. So it's set like 6:30 in the morning, my phone rings, and I pick it up and I see my dad's calling, and I'm like, I'm putting that down, it's early in the morning." And then, like, my brain was like, "Hey, dumbass, why would your father be calling you that early in the morning?" And so I sat up and I said, I remembered that situation when my sister was telling me, I was like, my dad might be at work. So I grabbed my gun, put my pants on, and drove over. And when I drove over, there's an ambulance there. And I bring these things up to you because when I walked into that room, my father had already collapsed on the ground. He was sitting up and he had some semblance of who I was. And I remember looking at him, the man who just did not care anymore. And I looked over at a trash can, and in that trash can were 2 boxes of Hostess cupcakes he ate the night before. My father has stents in his heart and he has extremely high blood pressure. And if you don't know, when you eat sugar at nighttime and then you go to sleep, your insulin level spikes. And then when you wake up, your blood pressure, it explodes through the roof. And you have a 90-degree turn that goes from your body up into your brain, and that 90-degree curve, there's so much blood pressure in there that it burst, and that's what ended up killing him. But when I walked in that room, I looked at my father and I sat down in front of him. I said, "Hey, Dad, I'm here." And he looked at me, smiled, and started crying because at that moment, he fucking cared. He cared at that moment. He cared. He was scared. He was terrified, and he cared. And when I die, I'll tell you all this: when I die, I won't shed a damn tear. When I die, there will be a smile on my face because I didn't live that life that my father lived. I didn't live that life that most people around me are living who are running excuses for themselves and they're slowly murdering themselves every single day. Because when I die, I want everybody to look back at my legacy, no matter how great or good it was, and just talk about me in the way that I imagine, not just myself, but the way that God has presented me to the world. And if you're not looking for those things, if you're giving yourself excuses, if you're closing yourself out, if you're closing the people out in your life that are beacons and you're holding on to these people that are holding you down, you're just going to die with a tear in your eye and wish you did something better. And I promise you, that's the only way it's going to freaking work.
Yeah. Those are the people at the end, they're like, they're apologizing for everything that they've done wrong. And it's like, why did you wait that long? Like, have those tough conversations right now. Do it because the time may come where it's too late and you can't. And then you're going to look back at it and be like, oh, I wish I would have done, I wish I would have said what I really thought. And, or I wish I would have forgiven them. And it's, it-
We're all going to have wishes at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, I'd like to have a lot less wishes. I'd like to be much more sure of what it is when I go.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I look at, people that, they ignore the tough conversations with their spouse or partner, and they just let it snowball and
Yeah.
get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then pretty soon it's gotten so out of control that when they go to have that tough conversation, they're both enraged, and it could end up and going many different ways. One, it could turn into a domestic situation, or it turns into you saying things to your spouse or your partner that you cannot unsay. Once those words are spewed out, they're going to remember them. And let me tell you what, they will hold on to them. So, I highly encourage people that are scared to have those tough conversations to have them. Or if you know that you're overspending because it just makes you feel better and you can't pay your bills, and you're like, "Well, I did this because it makes me feel better." I love the retail therapy thing, and, I've done it. I've done it.
Oh, yeah.
Usually, I get buyer's remorse after, and I'm like, "Oh, I shouldn't have got that." Mm,
I got
you
buyer's
know,
remorse buying gum.
right? But and I get it, man, it's hard, we grow we're out there in a world that, makes you feel like you need to keep up with the Joneses. Over here, there's people that buy these side by sides that cost more than a damn car, and I'm like, and they're getting the power shut off, and they can't put groceries on the table, but they got a $30,000 freaking side by side just to look cool.
Yep.
Um, you know, and just those, like you said, those micro compromises. Like, if I was, out being in observation points, you know, um, when we were out in sector in Afghanistan, yeah, I'm tired. We're all tired, you know, but being like just allowing yourself to, like, doze off or something, it could cost everybody their lives.
It's
You know,
too
we
easy to be great.
yeah,
It's too easy to be great. When you work in a job, every job I worked out after the army, it was something like, "Hey, you're doing this, and this is your job." And then my job, I could get my job done, 70% of, within 70% of the time frame they're asking me for. I do it quicker. And then I stand there and go, "Well, this is stupid. Let me sweep a floor." Like, let me do extra work. Let me add to this thing I'm supposed to be doing. Let me pick up some more moments where I can make differences everywhere I go. And if you're doing those things at work, right, then I believe you're working hard. I always ask people though, like when you talk about like, I decided to get this $30,000 thing, even though I can't afford anything. One of the biggest excuses or things I hear from people is, well, I work hard, so I deserve it. And then I ask them, I'm like, well, if you just put yourself into debt, you also deserve that, don't you? Like, I don't
right.
want to hear you come back and be like, well, that's stupid because I should be making more. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe you should. Like, it's subjective, right? But you're not. So why are you doing so much to put yourself in the bottom just so you can come up with an excuse later and talk to me about, well, I needed that $30,000 vehicle because I worked super hard. And I like always ask everybody, like, did you work super hard for it?
Mhm.
Did you ever sit back when you came? Did you come home and were like, well, I did my 40-hour week. I'm not working anymore. But why the hell did my work stop at my 40-hour week? When I came home, why didn't I work more? Why didn't I try to find more things? Why is it I have to stop and do nothing?
'Cause you're tired.
You're tired.
Your day was hard. That's what
Right.
it is, man. Your day was hard. It
Yeah.
took it out of you.
It's just another excuse. I'm not saying you can't be tired, and I'm not saying you can't have a day. Like that's like it's not 24/7. I mean, like we don't all have that energy, but more times than not, it's an excuse-driven world. Like you said, like one compromise at a time. It only takes one, but usually it's not one compromise. It's one compromise here, and then you'll get to another spot and be like, nah, another compromise. And then you just start really coming. These compromises feel so good that you put yourself into a position where you're nowhere near where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, you're completely out of your range fans,
Mhm.
you know? And a range span, we're talking about range spans, when you're on a range, you got a left and right limit. And, suddenly you're way off course, and it's a big deal if you're firing outside the range fans. It's a big deal.
Oh yeah.
Like, there's a lot that goes into making these ranges, and especially if you're dealing with heavy weaponry. Like I was on a Bradley fighting vehicle. I was a Bradley gunner. I mean, you're shooting 25 Mike. You go outside the range fan for that thing, who knows where it's gonna go, you know? Um, and while you're doing that in your life, it applies to your life too. You have to have your left and right limits and be like, okay, this is how I'm gonna live my life, and I'm not gonna deviate from this path unless something causes me to dramatically shift. And
Right.
that can happen. It could be the loss of a spouse. It could be just something completely life altering, right?
Yep.
And when that happens, if you're not preparing yourself for the bad that can happen, like what if it goes wrong? Like for us, it's what happens if the shit hits the fan? Well, we work off warning orders, operation orders, and then we have a fragment order, a frago. If everything goes bad, this is what we're gonna do. So and you can put that to play in your life and be like, this is how I want to operate in my life. But you got to stop making compromises, and you got to stop making compromises with people that are robbing you of succeeding in your life. Like there's always those people that, because I'm down, I want other people down with me, and I can't stand it. Like, I will cut you out of my life. If you do that, I will cut you out of my life very quickly. And I'm like, hey, listen, sorry. I can't just live with this mindset. So either you can change it, or sorry, I got a mission to do, and I've got to have as much positivity in my life as possible. And it- your AO or your area of operations, it just doesn't fail all at once. All those compromises that you make, I mean, it's just slowly eroding away at you, and you're not guarding yourself anymore. You're not guarding your heart. You could be not guarding your family, you
Right.
know? And it's sad to see, but we do allow it to happen, you know? I didn't wanna take accountability for what was going on inside of me, and I had a failed relationship. And then I look back at it and I'm like, "Why did you make all those excuses back then? Like, why did you accept that that was okay?" You
Yeah.
know? Like,
w-
your part or your significant other treating your children badly, and you're like, "Oh, they mean well." No, they're not their kids. Like, don't let somebody else treat your kids like crap. Do not let somebody else treat your kids like crap. I allowed that to happen, and I paid the price for it. And now, for me, I'm very protective. I'm like, "No, you're not coming near my kids. You're not coming near my kids at all. Not until I vetted you, like, fully."
Yeah.
And and understand that too. When
How
you're
do you
when you're
how do you vet someone?
I watch them. I have conversations with them, and I just slowly see what changes they're gonna make.
Yeah.
And because people will reveal themselves, an employee will reveal themselves in the first 2 weeks,
Yeah.
because they're gonna be like, man, they're gonna sell you, and you're gonna hire them, and then all of a sudden you're like, "You are not who you said you are."
Right.
I will literally sit there and I'll have conversations with people, and this is not a manipulation, but I ask a lot of questions, like, "What are your thoughts on this?" "What are your thoughts?" Like, "I have X amount of children, how do you feel about that?" I'm a 41-year-old grandfather. Um,
Ah, damn.
yep, grandfather, grandpa 2, 2. So, 2 beautiful granddaughters. So, um, but
Okay.
yeah, just watch
So
people. Just
I
watch and
yeah.
ask questions. Don't do it to be manipulative. You always have to be trying to learn. mm, It could be trying to learn a friend, and I've had friends that I was like, "Man, I thought I really knew who you were, and you're not who I thought you were." And, like, shame on me because I
Right.
didn't I didn't pay attention well enough, and that's how I look at it. And I'm like, "All right, you gotta start making sure you're keeping your circle real tight. And if anybody tries to penetrate that, then you need to get rid of them. You need to
Right.
get rid of them very quickly. And you'll be able to tell because they'll start bringing negativity. They'll start talking really bad about others. If you're with somebody that's constantly just complaining about other people, um, you'll start doing that. And then, pretty soon you don't even realize how bad you've become.
So, getting to that point and getting to that position, you start taking control of your life. A lot of people start to feel guilty about being accountable, like having accountability for themselves and their families and the things around them. And I think it's problematic to feel guilt about that. And other people are going to try and make you feel guilty about it. The people that are going to make you feel guilty about it are the people who are tying you down. I think you can really, especially when you're just looking at your personal life, you can really find out who's on your side just by letting them know that, hey, look, I'm listening to this podcast. I'm listening to these people talk, and they're talking about like making change. And then when you start bringing that up to people, either you're going to, and let's just say you go, I'm going to fully dive into this. You just tell, let's say your spouse, it doesn't matter because we'll point the spouse because it's my favorite place to go. You tell your spouse this is what you want to do. And, and believe it or not, spouses can be a burden to you. Spouses can be a ball and chain whether you like it or not. That's the truth. And those people will try and make you feel guilty closest to you because that means that once you choose to be accountable, they also know that they have a choice to become accountable. And then once you become super accountable, then you start to become a mirror for other people. And then you'll really start finding out who doesn't want that mirror held up to their face. And those people are usually, uh, they're usually your burdens. They're usually the weight carrying you down. And I try to tell people just, that's the only way to take back control. You don't have to get rid of these people permanently, But I've put friends you're on timeout for like 6 months until they can figure out this is what I'm about, this is what I'm doing, and then when they come back to try and speak to me, they know they can't, uh, say those same things to me, feed me their excuses for the things I'm doing or whatever the case is. I don't think you should feel guilt, but you will get some of it once you start taking accountability for everything in your life.
Yeah, it's just a hard thing for people to do, and because it hurts, it's painful. It's like, I messed up, and yeah, you should feel some pain about that, but you should turn that pain into a strength and use it to be, I'm going to make this change, whether it be in your finances, your marriage, your job. No, I'm going to start showing up 100%. I'm going to take that time to get that, maybe that hour early to work, and use it for me time, whether it's just to sit there, like you said, listen to music, or maybe listen to something positive, right? We all watch YouTube.
Mhm.
you know you don't just have to listen to our podcast. There's a million and one out there that can get you motivated,
Yeah.
and just hearing some positivity in the morning is, oh man, it sets your day up for such success.
Yeah.
I mean, like, when I got on this morning, I told you, I was like, "Oh, man, I'm pumped. I'm pumped." I was listening to some Five Finger Death Punch, and, that's my go-to. Like me some Five Finger Death Punch. So,
That's so funny
but
you say five finger death punch, just to throw that in there, but five finger death punch means something completely different in my family's house. With my and
is
five
it the
fingers. So
Kill
my
Bill version?
no, my kids won't let me tickle them. No tickling, dad. And I'm like, well, I can't. Like when we play fight, I'm like, oh, I can't play punch you guys. Like just I destroy you. So I was like, so now they're like, "No tickling," and I'd be like, I'm not," and I'd bring my fingers up and I'd start making them like, move real fast, and I'd be like, "This is called the five-finger death punch," and I just, like, tap 'em with my fingertips and start making them giggle and stuff. Sorry, I had to throw that in there, it's just fun.
No, it's fine, dude.
Um,
That's a funny reference.
but so ownership, action, when you talk about it, what does that look like in real life?
Really?
Are we doing one thing? Are we doing 5 things at once? Is it more beneficial to hit or here's the bigger thing I throw your direction is, if we start being unaccountable, we start being I don't even know if unaccountable is a word, but, uh, if we start making all these excuses and it always starts tiny and becomes big, do we take that same position, or is it more beneficial to take that same position when you're talking about owning your own AO? Is it an all at once thing, or is it a small start thing?
That goes down to, planning, you know? It's another accountability tool. It's like, okay, I planned this for this day, like I needed to go to the bank. I needed to pay this bill. I needed to make sure that my kids get picked up on time, where you didn't follow your plan for the day, or you've got bad time management. I I can't stand bad time management, because it's like, where did you slack off that you ran out of time,
Right.
you know? And so definitely, it's not a blame. It's not a blame. You got to own this stuff, you know, like a leader stepping up, even if it wasn't their fault, you know. We've seen that happen countless times. And I mean, where do you think you've seen people make small compromises that, completely pull them right off their mission in life?
Oh, I can get into physical fitness.
Yeah, there you
I can
go.
get into physical fitness, and I only say that because, I mean, I've been doing physical fitness stuff for 15, 20 years now. I've been gifted with this great ability to just research, learn, figure things out. And I only did that because I got tired of the army telling me that I was broken and being like, no, I'm gonna be better. Or not even just the army, but guys in the army, especially older ones, saying silly stuff to me like, um, "Oh, when you're my age, when you're my age, when you're my age." And those same people, I mean, I personally think I look incredible for being almost 40 years old. So it's not that same thing. I don't let everybody else's words change me. But when it comes to even physical fitness, me personally, with complex PTSD, all this other stuff that goes on in my life, my you have to change your mind. You have to do this. You have to do that. You have to do all these different things. But for me, my physical health was one of my biggest um, growth uh, captures of growth I had to do because that's where it started, even in the army, right? In the army, the first thing you do is you just start running and you just start getting smoked. But it was just part of my day. And it became a great resource. And for most of us, especially if we're talking about veterans, all of us veterans have been in shape. And I guarantee you, I don't care who you are, listening or not listening. Every single day you wake up, you look at yourself naked in the mirror and you're like, I should do something about this. And then you don't. And I think a lot of people end up doing this thing is they go, oh, a workout, I have to spend this much money on the gym membership. And that's an excuse. And then, oh, when I get in there, people look at me. That's an excuse. Well, the only time I have to do it, I work a 14-hour day, so the only time I have to do it, this is my favorite one. The only time I have to do it is when I get home, but I'm so tired. And all those things are major excuses because I try to tell people all the time, I'm like, okay, well, imagine the last time you said you were going to do something, then 3 years later you finally did it. And if you'd have just done it 3 years prior, you'd be 3 years further into it. Why is it that when you talk about your physical fitness, just if we're looking at physical fitness standpoint, why is it that when we look at our physical fitness, we must be inside this box of 2 hours? We must have a gym membership. We can't, during our lunch break, hop down and do 20 push-ups, 20 air squats, and that's just the physical fitness portion. Yes, you're gonna look freaking funny in front of your coworkers doing squats, but I looked funny in front of my coworkers doing squats, but when I take my shirt off, my coworkers don't think it's funny anymore. Yeah, that's the situation, right? And they're like, and then they get to spit their excuses at me, and I just get to smirk and go back to doing my push-ups, right? That's just a small piece of it, but that is where it starts. It's not like people like look at it like, well, not today because I'm tired. And
Mhm.
someone will have the intent and be like, today I'm tired, but I'm gonna do it. And but the kids got this, and you start creating these tiny snippets. You push it out 2 hours, then it goes down. Then I tell you, well, it only takes 1 hour, and then you'd be like, well, I didn't have that hour today, and I'm like, okay, well, it takes 30 minutes, and you would go, I don't really have the 30 minutes, or my elbow kind of hurts, or you forgetting that you have fingers and forearms and necks, and you know what I'm saying, like you have all these things. Okay, today you don't have the ability to go work out. Why didn't you take 10 minutes and go research the body part you'd like to fix? And then just take that day and mentally work out by, reading the anatomy and how it all functions. Like, this is just stupid small stuff you can do, but, when you come in front if you come talk to me and you give me an excuse, I'm gonna keep breaking your excuses down to where they're just rubble at that point, and then you should be able to do that to yourself too. So if you can sit down at the end of the night and find that one thing that you're constantly making excuses about that you could definitely fix, there's nothing stopping you from fixing it, then start writing down every excuse you make every single time, and then start chipping away at those excuses. You have to shave. It's not like a it's not like a broad axe where you just cut down the whole tree. You're gonna have to shave pieces off bit by bit. And I think people don't do that. I think people will find every tiny little excuse, but it does go back into the fitness. And I only point that out, Matt, because your body, especially for us veterans, once your body feels better, you feel better about you. There is no the body and brain are completely together. So if you're working your body, you're working your central nervous system, you're depleting your body of cortisol, which is stress hormone, and then filling it with not dopamine from your phone and flicking through your phone, but a massive dump of dopamine that will start your day off properly
Mhm.
or shut your night down properly. Either way, whatever you have the ability to do. And if someone tries to tell me they can't wake up 45 minutes before work, I'd like to say, okay, well, you're off on the weekends, and they say, yeah, and I go, okay, you have 2 days on the weekend to grind out. That's all you need. You just need the 2 days, right?
Yeah.
That's it,
I mean, that's all we had. We had 2
right?
days, and really not even 2 days. You had, like, a day and a half because you had to start making sure you were hydrating and everything else for the next morning because on
Yeah.
Monday morning, you bet your ass you're getting smoked.
Oh yeah.
So,
Toss back a fifth the night prior and still run my 10 miles.
I know, man.
Why? Because I had to.
I always could never figure you guys out, like, that could do that. Like, I'm like, "I don't know how they do it," and you could just smell the alcohol and the formations just
That was
coming
the
out
hunt,
of
man. My
that.
first day in the 101st was a 10-mile run after, and I remember they had Camelbacks, and we had liquor in our Camelbacks, and we were running 10 miles with Camelback liquor, and it was terrible. Terrible for everybody else, but I was, like, 19, so everybody's, like, sweating and dying. I'm like, "What's wrong with you guys?" Like,
Right?
piss and vinegar, right?
Yeah, and, I just remembered this while we were talking about, physical fitness and, not I don't have a gym membership or I don't have the time to do it. I mean, we would come off patrols and our gyms were like the most makeshift thing in the world. Like, do you remember to try what the hell was that to do the tricep pull downs or anything like that? Or we had to like
Yeah.
cable and a rope on a pulley
Yeah. Yeah. Tied to some plates.
to tie to some plates. Yeah,
In my
exactly.
first deployment, we had a bunch of steel bars, and then we just bought the Haji concrete from the locals, and we just filled up 5-gallon buckets and stuck them on the end of each pole, and you had no idea what you were lifting ever. It was like, "This one's heavy, this one's not heavy," you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's how you would do everything, so you it's just an excuse, everything's an excuse,
Yeah,
all of it.
yeah. And it really comes down to, like I said before, ownership.
Yeah,
And that's the only way forward. It's the only way forward.
yeah, this is my shit.
Mhm. I'm the captain of it. Nobody else is gonna run it. I'm gonna go forward, and
Right.
then it's who am I gonna take forward with me that's gonna benefit my life.
You're gonna go on my Titanic, and when we hit that iceberg and we start sinking, it's still my Titanic, and I'm going down with it, but I'm
Mm,
gonna be remembered forever. Like, you know what I'm saying?
right?
Unless you're on the door and you let him die, but whatever.
Yeah, and
Hell
and
yeah.
you brought this up too. Accountability, it's not about guilt. It's taking back the control in your life, and it feels so good. Like, I can feel the control that I have over my life now, and let me tell you what, the stress that has came off of me, and I'm 100% permanent and total, disabled veteran, and, but and yeah, I hurt in a lot of different places, and I could let that limit me, or I can just push through or find out what I can actually do that's not limiting to me, or the fact that maybe all the BS that I was doing to myself, the excuses that I was making, maybe that's what was really causing all the pain in my body. Because let me tell you what, just like you said, you were talking about the cortisol and stuff. The moment that I started taking ownership and acknowledging the things that I did wrong, man, my pain levels went way down and I dropped a bunch of weight. So I allowed myself to get up to 235 pounds. I am
Ooh.
not like, and I looked at myself and I was like, what in the heck? Like, how did this happen? Like, your frame is not meant for this, like, why are you looking like Channing Tatum with a dad bod, you know? And I looked at it and I've dropped that weight and I'm back down to, I think I'm at 185 now.
Nice.
So, and I did it, and now my body, it just feels so much better. And I understand there's people out there, right? Your body's just there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, you don't have to be a frickin' that's the problem. When we think about working out, people think they have to be some kind of Adonis. You don't. Just do it a little bit. Just do a little bit. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy the workout. You don't have to go in there and lift weights. Go do calisthenics. Go jogging, go walking. Just do little bits at a time. Just those tiny little bits, right? Like we said before, like once you take that ownership, it doesn't have to be like you don't have to jump in the gym and be there for 2 hours trying to become Arnold Schwarzenegger. It does those things don't matter. I mean, I stayed in the gym because it was mentally cleansing for me,
Mhm.
but at a time, but also the gym also not became also a crutch, I guess you could say, because I would just go in there and just be in there. I wouldn't even be doing anything. But with the intent there, you don't have to put a goal in front of you to look. the way I do, or look the way, C bum looks, or whoever you can put into X, right? But the
Yeah.
idea is, just once you get started, you can just find a level that you enjoy, and that's all that matters. You're not fixing a problem in your life. You're just bettering that problem, and over time, because every day, I mean, if your days are filled with no problems, then you're not having a day. You know what I'm saying? Then you're in the complacency if you have no problems every day. You've got yourself so comfortable that these things aren't a problem anymore. You're just used to those problems. It's just like pain, right?
Right.
If you got injuries or whatever the case is, and you've had them for 15 years, it still freaking hurts. You just don't care as much as you used to because you're just used to it hurting all the time. Same thing with all these other problems you have in your life. But even that small choice to make in your body, or the small choice to make in your mind, or the small relationship problems, looking for the next purpose you have, or whatever your next goal may be. If you can't touch each one in a small amount without putting such a large block on top of it, you're bound to fail. And
Hmm.
you're gonna fail because you can't you put too much on it. So I think it's important that people remember, one, don't feel guilty because you want to make a major change in your life. Secondly, my advice to you is, don't tell anybody you're making the change. Don't give the enemy your plans. And when I say enemy, it is a strong word. It's like my sister, she's my enemy. I love her, she's my sister, but when I bring her good things, she's divisive. So maybe it's not her, but it's just her mindset that becomes my enemy.
Mm.
And so you have to think about those same things going into all this. If I wanna go work out, I'm not gonna tell everybody on Facebook, "Hey, I'm beginning my workout journey," like, because then people will just dog you, and then you'll lose sight of what's really important. Just go do it. Just be about it, and be about it in small pieces until you're ready to step into a larger piece, and it'll make life a lot easier for you. Nobody gets up to the top of the stairs by leaping to the top.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, like take the actual steps, you know. Maybe it's your mental health,
Yep.
you know. That we see such a problem with mental health in this country. And a lot of it really boils down to, and I blame social media for this a lot, because there is groups out there that are very, like, they want you to stay in that mindset so that way they
Absolutely.
get more followers. And I followed a couple depression and anxiety groups. And I know it's the admins on there posting up stuff and trying to get people going, and like hearing like, why is it so hard to talk to people when you're depressed? Like, it's not. And then you see other people talking on there like, "Oh, I know, I understand it. I have the same problem, like, I just don't talk to anybody." And but you're not taking the actual steps to take care of your mental health, whether it's finding the positivity.
Yeah.
'Cause you just take some time and listen to something positive. Or if you're a believer, take the time to dig into scripture, and really dig into it, because there's gonna be a message that's gonna pop out of there. The
Absolutely.
reason why people don't like looking into scripture sometimes is gonna make you realize something about yourself that God's trying to tell you, and you're like, "Oh man, I don't wanna do that."
Yeah, blah, blah, la, 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 la,
Yep.
la. Your hands over your
I
ears,
don't hear
yeah.
you. I don't hear you,
Yeah.
you know? But take the actual steps. Or if you can't, you know, or I shouldn't say that, or if you can't, getting a coach. Getting, talking to a life coach and being like, "Hey, this is what's going on in my life. This is where I wanna succeed, and this is where I wanna be at."
Oh, even on that, like, if whoever's listening, like, if you feel as if you have questions, you have a place to go. You can literally, speaking for myself, but I know Matt's in the same understanding as this. You have the ability to DM us on Facebook, or send a comment, or whatever the case is, depending on how personal it is, to like reach out to Matt or I, or anybody else who's in the admin team here on the shift, just to ask simple questions. Because I know we spitball over all these blocks quickly, or back and forth, but if you have questions, there's no reason. It's impossible to do this by yourself. I'll explain that now. It's impossible to do this by yourself, and I only say that because, all right, it's not impossible. It's improbable to do this by yourself, but with an extremely strong support group, And your support group can change at any time. It doesn't always have to be the same people. Use like we talked about before, right? Use each person for their abilities to help you, and then whatever things you don't want in that, you move on to another person who can help support you in that aspect. Matt and I aren't on the same level for every little thing here. Matt's got more of some things and I've got more of others and less in each, right? It's crazy to think that you should stop and do this by yourself, but you also have to position yourself in the correct herd, so to speak. If you're surrounded by people that don't have your best interest in it, or they're not in the same position, or at least not moving in the same, if they're not moving forward, then, we can't go forward. You're not gonna go forward, you're gonna be held back. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Those people should be enhancing your life.
Absolutely.
And likewise, you should be enhancing theirs. We all have the ability to be assets to one another. And, but many times we're too afraid
Mm,
to be
mm,
like, hey,
mm,
like
mm,
me going to, um, say I'd go to you with a problem and, but I don't come to you with the full problem, right? Because I,
right.
I don't want you to know everything. I only give you like the vaguest of information. And, how much help am I really gonna get out of that? And that boils down to making sure that when you do have your circle, that is people you trust. And Dan mentioned this, that you can reach out, you can DM us, and we'll answer your questions. And we'll keep that stuff very confidential.
Absolutely.
We're not gonna put you out there on blast.
Absolutely.
Unless you're like, hey, use my story, it can help. We don't do that. And because we understand we understand. And I've had to go to Dan with things, and Dan's came to me with things, but I trust him. I trust him fully. And that's the reason why we're in this together. But, I have to own my parts and just accept it and move past it. I was unfaithful. Okay. I used to lie a lot. How do I stop doing that? How do I show up? How do I be truthful? Well, it starts with being truthful with yourself. And if you know you're messing up, this entire session that we're doing right here, I hope it's a wake up call. Like, I'm even thinking about things. I'm like, man, I need to make some changes, as we're going along and we're talking. And that's the beauty behind the shift, is because not only are we trying to see you get and make that shift, but we're making a shift inside of us as well. So there's so much growth that can come out of it. And that's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
and I know we haven't really said too much about the area of operations and whatnot, but that's your entire life. You know, it's, we just because we're civilians now, we're not, back in the military. We don't drop those sectors. And a lot of times for veterans, we do that. We let our guard down. And our there's so many soldiers and veterans that take their lives, and it's because they
They're
they
lost.
don't they're lost. They've lost all their purpose.
Absolutely.
And it's you do have a purpose. You're a server. You serve this entire country. And whether you see what's going on in the news and what's going on, or your views on how we pulled out of Afghanistan, or your political views or anything like that, you know, what you did matters. You affected lives. You served this country honorably. And those
Absolutely.
that support the military, thank you so much, because it wasn't always like that. You know, when Dan and I got back from Afghanistan, they had to warn us because, whatchamacallit there, the Westboro Baptist Church was standing over on the corners with their picket signs going, thank God for dead soldiers, thank God for IEDs, and you had to tell the guys, like, don't go beat them up. No matter how much you want to, don't go beat them up.
Because I can.
Right?
I could hurt them. It's easy for me.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember my kids seeing it and they're being like, why did they do that? And I'm like, they're just, they're lost. They
Yeah.
lost their way, and there was a leader that pushed them in that direction. And thank goodness we don't hear too much about them anymore.
Right.
But um, but your area of operations is your mindset, and what you're going to allow your brain to take over. And Dan talked about this, like eating healthy and stuff like that. Your stomach is like it's directly connected to your brain. So what you put in there can affect you a lot. And, like there's feel good foods, right? I love me some soul food. Oh man, I will tear it up. I love red vines, right?
Yeah.
Red vines, they're like my go-to like little snacky thing. There's a whole big thing of them right there in the cupboard, and I'm like, no, don't go in there and destroy that entire thing.
Drugs and alcohol are mine.
Yep.
They, for me personally,
Yep.
I could never eat again and be fine with it, but drugs and alcohol. And I only point that out because, that's what a lot of us veterans do, right? We get out of the military and we start doing, medical marijuana or whatever the case is. And I don't have any negatives. I mean, I have negatives. There's no judgment behind it. Like it's just like everything else in life. You gotta take it in small doses or correctly or whatever the case is. But the problem is for me, I don't use them because they're fun. I used them because they allowed me to escape the reality that was in front of me, and that was something that I brought up even from being a kid to now. I just used um, those coping mechanisms, I guess you could call them, as tools to escape the reality because I wasn't prepared to move forward in my life, and I wasn't prepared to take care of my AO. And it's funny that you bring up, your area of operations, or I think it's even in the military, 'cause these things fall into every category of our life. You cannot control what is happening in the grand scheme of things. A lot of us get too bent up on, well, why, the president's doing this or this person's doing this. I can't control those things. I honestly can't. There's
Yeah.
nothing I can do, and they just stress me out. The only thing that I control is what is literally right in front of me. That is the main thing. And like you said, when we're holding sectors as soldiers or whatever the case is, we're securing that sector. That's one piece of the pie. When I was in, North Carolina not too long ago, I was part of one of the rescue missions that were going out there for, Helene, and I was with a group of other veterans, and they were getting angry because it felt like we got pushed off to the side by the local, not even the local, by all the other departments that were getting paid for this, and we were doing it for free. And a lot of the guys were kinda getting butthurt, and I had to stop and tell them. I said, "Hey, guys, check it out. I know we're upset because there's these massive changes and massive things that we can do, but we're only allowed to do certain things." I was like, but there have been about 10 people that have come by from the area that have just stopped their vehicles and yelled out the window, "Hey, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it." I was like, so even those tiny things we do inside of our small AO, that small thing you did may not mean a lot in the grand scheme of things, but those things don't matter because you made giant changes in who you don't even know who you've touched in life. You just controlling your AO, you have the ability to change multiple lives inside of that small AO just by changing yourself, because most people aren't ready to do any of these things.
Yeah.
Most people. And once you
Yeah.
start doing those things, you change. It's going to be crazy how many lives you can change just by having a different perspective and having a different mindset.
Yeah. We're not saying go out there and, join the Red Cross or, do,
Yeah, no, no.
all those things. But I keep thinking back to my interview with Gigi and like her story and how that opened and how life, I mean, she was abandoned by her parents
Super crazy.
and raised by her grandparents. And she could have allowed that to control her entire life. And she took all that pain and transformed it into a beautiful photography studio with a beautiful mission behind it and with a goal to heal. Like just because she's hurting, she knows what it's like to hurt. And but she wants to serve others. She turned that pain into serving others. Definitely check out Gigi Kraus photography. Amazing photographer and amazing goal.
Eh,
And
eh,
her goal is to bring out the true beauty in somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. What is it? Iron sharpened iron, and don't let your sword get rusty.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Don't let the sword get rusty.
Yeah. Yeah. Take the time. Heal too. Take the
Yeah.
time and heal though, but heal properly, you know? Set boundaries,
Yeah.
set them to protect your home, your life. Take the time to really recover and reflect, but don't shut down completely.
Right.
You could be just taking that extra hour in the day, getting up a little bit earlier. Like I'm a big proponent. I wake up 5:30, 6 a.m. My body's just programmed to do that now. And I'm very thankful for that because I love the mornings. It's quiet. I can sit there and I can reflect on what I'm going to do for that day and what I need to get done. And I set a boundary in place for myself where I'm like, no, you're not going to let anything touch the first hour of that morning. You're going to, that's mat time,
Right.
you know? And because I've done that, I'm able to recover from a lot of things. I'm able to recover. I don't feel guilty about what has happened. I have no regrets. I understand there's mistakes that I've made in my life, but those mistakes have made me stronger. They've made me wiser, and they pushed me to be my true self. And I just took the time to really sit there and reflect on what was going wrong. You know, your mind, your discipline, whether you're trying to learn, whether you're trying to better yourself as parents, right? Looking at positive parenting things. Um, I listened to um, there was a life coach that I listened to, and she focused on families and how much parents will take out their anger on their children, or they'll just ignore them and not see what's really going on in their kids' lives.
Right.
And then when your kid acts up in school and you're like, why? And it's like, well, where were you?
Maybe you act up at home.
Yeah.
You
What
know, that's
what
how
what
maybe
example are
maybe
you
right,
setting?
right. A
You know?
child's just a shadow of you.
Exactly. Exactly. I understand there's children out there that have been through trauma
Yeah.
and stuff, but if you're that strong parent, then you should be showing up for your child. And if you I've seen so many single parents just raise absolutely outstanding kids, and moms and dads alike, but it's because they showed up for their kids.
Right.
So, my kids call me, I'm about to be moving up to the South Dakota area to be closer to them, um, and I get to be there in person, but now being geographically dispersed from them, they know they can call me at any point in time, and they can get a lesson or advice, and I've taught them to be able to do that, to be able to reach out, but, I also taught them, "Don't come to me with a complaint.
Yeah.
Don't come complaining, because
Yeah.
if you got a complaint, you better have a solution to it."
Right, every time, right? If you have a problem, bring me a solution. Don't come to me until you have a solution. Then I'll tell you if your solution's gonna work, or I'll help you regulate your solution so it makes more sense.
Yeah, like, what are the consequences of that decision,
Right.
good or bad?
And what's funny about that is because we talk about all these things that we were talking about, well, we have this practical drill for everybody to reclaim their AO, right? I the same thing goes with my kids. My kids have the same thing. Well, not my youngest kids, obviously, because they're like, "What the hell are you talking about, Dad? I just love Barbie," you know. But my oldest ones, I have a 17-year-old who's about to be 18 soon, and I got a 13-year-old who's going to be 14 in like a month. So they go through the same things with me. I ask them about their physical fitness, what they're eating for the day, when's the last time they prayed? Do they want me to pray with them? I always give my kids the out. Go pray by yourself or have me pray with you. Like, just what I mean, like, obviously this only entails to like my life and everybody can change it for their own. But um I they know that I had to make changes in certain areas before I could even make a gesture forward into a different area. Um and so do you want me to go into the just let them know what their practical drill can be?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, go
so write down so Matt has 4 AOs, and these AOs cover all these different areas. I have the same ones, I have, like, 6, but it's the same stuff. I mean, it's all the same stuff, but it's body, mind, relationships, and purpose. And so, you're supposed to rate each one of these 1 through 10, of how much you're taking ownership of these, and then you're gonna circle your lowest score, and then you're supposed to choose, or you're going to choose one action. And I think that's important that you choose one action because it allows you to focus in on one thing. And when we're shooting down, you're shooting down at the range, you got five dudes next to you on your left and right. And we have something called parallax, where you kind of like look at something farther away, but it's technically not the thing you're looking at that's straight in front of you. It's kind of off to the side. It's a completely different target. This is going to help you kind of focus in on the target you should be shooting for. So
Yeah.
for me, and I can only give you my piece. It took me years to figure out what I was doing, like where I was going. I just sat kind of stagnant. I wasn't really. I mean, I was searching, but I wasn't searching. And one of the first things personally, what I had to do was in my mind, I had looked at myself like less than, and I was stronger, bigger, faster, more explosive. Da 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 da. So the gym was the only place I could get away from my wife and kids, and it was the only place where I could get inside my own mind, but it was also the only place that I knew that other men like me were in that area doing the same things that I was doing. So I knew that I needed to fix my body because I knew that would help me fix my mind, but I also needed to create relationships, long-lasting relationships in a place that I knew I was gonna spend a lot of my time in, and I had to be around the people that were thinking the same direction I was thinking, because if I didn't have those people in my life, I would just fall back to the people in my home, or the closer family members that were burdening me, and they were also making those excuses that allowed me to hold on to the excuses. Even though I knew I hated those excuses, they still
Mhm.
became a part of me. So I think it's really great. So for me, I just started by going to the gym and just walking in there. That was it. It wasn't working out. It wasn't like any goal set. Just getting in there and just enjoying myself for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
Um,
Mine was mindset.
yeah,
It's, are you gonna stay positive or are you gonna let what's happened to you tear you down?
yeah,
And the rest will fall into place. I mean, you got a positive mindset. Your relationships are super strong. And again, I mean, you'll be able to find your purpose that way. So I had a Lyft driver 2, 3 days last week that he was a Navy veteran, and that's his thing. He's like, I lost my purpose. Like I'm still trying to find my purpose. And I just gave him my phone number. I'm like, hey, bro, you need anything, reach out. By all means, definitely check out our podcast because you're not alone. You're not alone. There's many of us out there feeling like this. I know
yeah,
there's listeners right now that are like, all right, I know I'm doing the same things. What am I gonna do about it?
right.
You
We're
know?
still I mean, like I said, Matt, you and I are still in I don't know where you're at in your journey, you know what I'm saying? But you see but from my perspective, you're kind of not you're in the beginning of that journey, but you've gotten rid of the excuses. Like, you understand that you made excuses. That's obviously the first part, right? I'm much further into this journey than most of the people I've met. I just didn't know I was in that journey. I just knew things needed to change, so I just started doing it. And what's crazy about this, I started doing it is it really did help. But it wasn't until I met other people trying to do it to where I actually was able to go, n I didn't have all the answers, and a lot of people had answers for me. A lot of
Mhm,
people or they gave me advice, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool, but that doesn't work for me, but that one piece does, so I'm gonna grab that and use it." And, it's that score, right? That score. So even with that score, if you move that score 1 point, and you have to go into any of these points. When you move that even by 1 point, how is that gonna look different for you? How is that life gonna change? Because for me, getting into the gym, I met my closest friend, Tom, and Tom's 79-year-old man. He's the reason why my marriage, didn't fail, and he's the reason why my wife and I got closer to God. It was just me stepping in there and finding someone that gave me what I needed, and then I was open and allowing people to do those things for me. So that one little shift actually started creating more my ratings started going up in everything else because I met him, body got better, mind got better, the relationship with someone I didn't know got better, which allowed me in the relationship of people I did know to get better. And then because of those things, I found purpose. I found my actual purpose. So you might start with one thing today and do that for a week and be like, okay, it's not really moving it, or maybe it moved it once. Have patience. Keep being um keep being disciplined because once that it will start taking effect. It will start just
You'll
Um,
notice it within 48 hours.
yeah, it'll compile. It'll just keep growing so fast exponentially to where now all of a sudden you forget that you were that person last year and you're, 180 degrees different for the best parts of yourself. And then you just always have the ability to keep growing and growing.
Mhm. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better, Dan.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better.
So unless you have anything else, well, I'll close this out.
Yeah. No, I just let's close this out.
All
Take
right.
her, brother.
Absolutely. So remember, complacency is a drip. It is an absolute drip. It doesn't it's not poured onto you, it's not dumped onto you, it's small little things that keep happening, until it becomes large things and it's a part of your life. When you stop paying attention to these things, that's how you get taken, that's how you get left behind. This is how your life becomes worse than it ever should have been when you had your ability to change things. Once you start changing yourself, your spouse starts following. Your kids will always follow you. Everybody in your life will start following you. Um, and when you don't take accountability for it, other people around you start failing in life because you're in charge of them. We you have this has to be strong. You have to be strong in this. And it's not tomorrow. It's not today where you're going to fix it all. This is time. This is consistency. It's just like working out and trying to grow muscles. You can't just go in there one day and then not come back for 3 weeks. It has to be a consistent, absolute targeted shot every single time. There must be intent behind it, and you really every time you make an excuse, you need to be able to recognize you just made an excuse and then change the thought process behind that. And it takes time to start recognizing those things, but it starts today. Um, it starts body, mind, relationships, and then you are going to be able to get your purpose, and then you can reclaim your life. You can put everything into action. So we would love for you to take this for the next 48 hours, get your scores in, write those in. If you have to, if you want to, get onto the comment sections. Just go body, mind, relationship, purpose, and then just put a number next to it. And that'll help. Just use this as accountability. Use your friends and your whoever you want, is going to be on your side for this. Have them become your accountability partner. Let them know that, hey, I was here, I'm here. If that's the thing you want to do. But the longer you wait on this, it's just like me trying to sell you a product. Hey, it's fine. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you got this. You don't want to purchase my stuff now, and that's fine. But you don't want to wait 3 months or 10 years or a year and then finally purchase into it, buy into our stuff. And then you could have had all those years before you to already be much further than you are. Um, this is the only way to fight against complacency. This is the only way to move yourself forward. You have to own your own AO, or you're going to lose it. And like I always say, forward we go.
Forward we go.
Amen.